Ms. Ramirez, welcome. You'll want to turn that on.
Thank you, Chairman Goodlatte and Ranking Member Conyers and the House Committee on the Judiciary. The police killing of Michael Brown and Eric Garner in July and August of 2014 have triggered protests not only in the cities in which those killings occurred, but also throughout this country. And since those shootings, there have been others. Freddie Gray in Baltimore and Walter Lamar Scott in South Carolina. It's plain to me, and I expect to all of you today here, that these protests are not just about the unwillingness to prosecute all but one of those officers for these shootings, but about a long, simmering resentment in the African American and Latino communities that the criminal law applies differently to them than it does to white Americans, that the police too often stop and frisk Latino and African American youths with impunity and without reasonable articulable suspicion, that automobiles driven by African Americans, especially in white neighborhoods, are too often stopped by police for driving while black, that the death of a black man at the hands of police is seen as more forgivable than the death of a white man, that prosecutors are less willing to see Hispanic and African American defendants as candidates for rehabilitation who deserve and need a break, and therefore they are more willing to press for mandatory sentences against them, and that more black men age 18 to 21 are in prison or in jail than in college. We can and should debate how accurate the statistical studies are and how accurate these perceptions are, and whether they're more accurate in some states and municipalities than in others. But I think we can agree that these perceptions are accurate more often and in too many places than we would want them to be, and that the perception itself is a reason for great concern, because beyond the statistical studies, we cannot be one nation if a significant percentage of our community members believe they are receiving an inferior quality of justice or no justice at all. The protests have provided an impetus for change, but they can't produce change by themselves. We need to ensure that these protests are different from previous protests, and that they don't merely cry out for justice, but actually lead to more justice. And to accomplish that, we need a roadmap for change, and we need to press our leaders in Congress and elsewhere to follow that roadmap and travel to a place where justice is more and fairer. To move past these tragedies, we need to do some concrete things. First, we need to strengthen police-community relations by creating community policing models focused on the development of partnerships between police organizations and the communities they serve. How? New infrastructure and architecture. Infrastructure and architecture that might provide the coherence we need and the coherence we need to bring to this enterprise. We need to create in every state federally funded community policing institutes dedicated to creating the tools, templates, training, and best practices for bringing the police and the community members to the table for discussions on how best to keep their communities safe and strong. And we need to increase police transparency by letting the public know what the police are doing. And that can only occur when state and local police departments are required to keep data regarding police stops, searches, and shootings, and to record the race of persons stopped, searched, or shot. Why? Because you can't possibly manage what you don't measure. Transparency also means requiring police to install cruiser cameras, to wear body cameras, and to monitor police discretion to turn those cameras off. My last point is about accountability, which means that allegations of police misconduct or situations in which a police officer shoots a civilian should be handled by an independent inspector general. The investigation and prosecutorial decision should not rest in the hands of a district attorney dependent on that police department for its criminal investigations, past and future. So we need police community partnerships, a state institute to support them, cameras, data collection, and an independent inspector general to investigate police misconduct. The roadmap doesn't end here today at this table. The next part is the most difficult. How do we implement it? The system is broken. We need Democrats and Republicans to come together to craft a roadmap to justice and figure out how to fund and implement it. Only then will we be able to create stronger and safer communities.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. I'll begin the questioning.